Hi there folks. In this video I'd like to do a quick breakdown of map design across various Battlefield games, namely 3, 4, and 6, as well as examine the spatial philosophies that define them and how they affect our gameplay. Let's get into it. Here we have a warehouse, quick mock-up of a warehouse, like one you might see in Battlefield 3 and 4. We got a couple of instantly recognizable features here, like our iconic shipping containers, as well as a couple of big blocks of the same containers stacked against each other. They could be storage units, piles of construction materials, anything to really break up the room. We got a vehicle passageway in here with big garage doors. We got some concrete barriers here to delineate the main passageway for vehicles. We also have a nice catwalk here, goes nice and long across the room here with some stairs on either end of it. We got those two big garage doors for the vehicles, as well as two smaller personnel entrances. We got some windows on one side, and then littered throughout here, we got these smaller military crates here. These could be ammo crates, pallets, smaller storage containers, barrels, things that decorate the map and also provide small moments of cover. Now let's look at a typical encounter in a warehouse like this. We're going to be playing as this guy today. This will be our main soldier, our main entry point here, and X will be our enemy. Now, upon entering this building, we're going to have to make a decision about a point of cover to get behind or where we're going. It's going to take a few steps to get there. Ultimately, we could take cover here, walk across the warehouse floor to get behind another container, here, or here. We might know this building has a catwalk in it, so we'll take our time to get up that catwalk and get to our favorite spot along here. While this is happening, there might be an enemy either entering here or someone who's already been in this warehouse patrolling. And while we're making our way to our spots here, most likely he's going to hear us. There's going to be about 30 meters of ground to cover here and quite a bit of footsteps to be heard. He's probably going to approach us and try to engage us, taking cover at points here, or here, while we're doing the same. And we might catch a glimpse of each other across a certain sight line while we're moving and traversing to our spots. And we might engage right there, or we might continue on to our areas and further assess our next steps. There's going to be lots of space and a good amount of time to decide our next moves and our next position of peeking. We're going to do level cap proud and pie our corners smartly here, and assuming the other guy is also big-brained, he's going to be doing the same. The sight lines that we're looking at here are nice and broad, and there's going to be lots of negative space here where you pretty much don't want to be. If you're traversing in between points of cover, those are places you could get caught and shot. You want to know where you're going to be and where you're going to be fighting from. The sight lines are pretty large and unobstructed for the most part once you get to your point of cover, and we got nice little happy pieable corners everywhere. As for the smaller points of cover, like these military crates, they're useful moments of cover and certainly important positions to take cover behind. But ultimately, when you're thinking of your map knowledge here, the macro is going to play a much more important role. You're going to remember that there are these 3 storage blocks here. You're going to remember your shipping containers. You're going to remember your catwalk for the elevation point in this facility. You're going to remember the doorways and entrances. And the things that might be more negligible are the smaller obstructions, like the roadblocks, maybe these containers. You're really going to be making most of your tactical decisions around much bigger map features. Let's get the vehicle in the mix here, and let's think about how the Humvee might play driving in here. So this Humvee drives in. He's got a mounted gun on top, and let's say there are enemies located around him. The first one he spots might be on the catwalk up here. He's going to rotate and engage him. Now, things can happen fast in Battlefield, so again, we could have another enemy entering the building upon hearing the ruckus happening inside, or another couple of soldiers who might have been looking out these windows here, taking cover in the building, hear what's going on. Now, our Humvee gunner here at this point has hopefully taken out the catwalk guy. Other soldiers are getting in position, and if we got an engineer, they're going to start popping shots. If it's an assault, he's going to be launching noob tubes at him, and the Jeep is going to start getting hit. Boom. Boom. Now the gunner of the Jeep is going to have some time to spin around and fire back. Again, there's going to be a bigger sight line here. Not a lot of things between the gunner and the soldiers. And the soldiers are also going to have bigger tactical decisions to make here. They're either going to not so smartly peek the same corner at the Jeep and get pinged by the gunner, or they're going to rotate around and take a shot from a smarter, different, unpredictable angle. And there might be a couple of soldiers doing this. So there's a real fight going on here and lots of decisions being made by the gunner and the soldiers attacking. And this engagement might take a minute or two. A nice little battle. Now, let's take a look at Battlefield 6 map design. Over here, we have the same warehouse remade in Battlefield 6's map design philosophies. Immediately we can see that it's a lot smaller, but it fundamentally has all the same parts. We got our storage containers, our catwalks with stairs, 2 personnel entrances, big garage doors, vehicle thoroughfare, blocks to divide the room up, and then we have our military crates again. Now, let's look at some of the same encounters and how they might play out in Battlefield 6. So again, we're going to be playing as this guy here, and we might have an enemy who's walking in here, or a guy who's already been patrolling in here, walking back and forth, maybe looking out these windows. So we run in here, and right off the bat, we're in cover, and we can kind of inch forward, but it's literally 2 steps from our first point of cover to our next. It's maybe 5 or 6 steps to the next one. And as we progress throughout the facility, we're now moving in intervals of about 10 to 12 to maybe 20 feet at a time, as opposed to 20 to 30 yards. Things are going to be happening a lot faster here. An enemy who's in here, upon hearing you, is going to react to your footsteps a lot faster and going to be checking those sightlines. Now, immediately, there's a lot more obstruction going on, so he's going to try to pie those corners if he's smart, but there is not so much negative space to be caught between. There is not big areas of traversal like there were on the previous warehouse to be caught between, and there are just kind of these flashy little moments that this enemy can catch us at. This ultimately makes for a game that revolves around very quick moments of peeking. Say I'm right here and there's an enemy right here. We're going to have to be peeking each other real quick here, and we're going to be taking maybe 10 steps to the other side of the Jeep. Maybe, you know, this guy's just going to straight up charge us to get on the other side of the Jeep, and we're going to be fighting within under 10 yards of each other. Things are going to have to happen very quickly, and ultimately the engagements are going to come down to who's the better shot, who has better twitch reflexes, and who can aim faster and pull a trigger faster than the other guy. Again, sightlines are a lot more cluttered and claustrophobic because everything is so much tighter in here. You're much more of a rat in a maze, kind of weaving your way through very tight lefts and rights and corners that you're just going to have to know. Let's take a look at our smaller obstructions here. These military crates now, relative to our soldiers' scale and relative to the map design's scale, are a lot more than just smaller moments of cover. No longer are you only concerned with macro features like our catwalks, our shipping containers, the big storage blocks here, and our entrances. You're going to need to know where all these crates are because they're a lot more important. They obstruct more of the map. As well, there are some other map design tricks that make them a lot more important in a game like Battlefield 6. Now, let's take a look at the same vehicle encounter. Our Humvee drives in. There's a guy up on the catwalk. Right away, this gunner has barely any time to react to this guy on the catwalk. He's got to rotate over, and he's going to engage him. Now, let's say again we got our other enemy entering in, or a couple of guys who have been in here taking cover, looking out the windows, etc., guarding the base, and they hear this ruckus going on. They're immediately going to rotate to engage the Jeep, which is going to happen in split seconds. They're going to take 4 or 5 steps and see a Humvee in there. They no longer have to walk the whole length of a storage container. They're going to walk around this block and start seeing this Jeep. They're going to engage, and by the time the first guy lets loose with a rocket and pops back into his little cover, if the gunner's lucky, he might get a shot into him. If the enemy's dumb, he might peek the same corner again and get pinged by the gunner. But most likely, in this scale of warehouse, one of our 2 other enemies here is going to blow this Jeep up pretty quickly. They're going to be hitting him and reloading faster than this gunner can react, and the sightlines for the gunner to target enemies on are almost non-existent. They're largely cluttered by small cover now, and there is, again, next to no negative space to catch infantry. Essentially, in Battlefield 3 and 4, this Jeep, he can drive right on in and have a gun and good time fighting people in this room. The same Jeep at the same size, driving into the smaller scale environment of Battlefield 6, is essentially committing suicide. It's very dangerous place to be. Now, there's a couple of other little map design tricks we should think about in Battlefield 6 versus the other games. Battlefield 6, because the physical scale of landmarks are so much smaller than previous games, there are tricks that Battlefield 6 uses to make spaces feel more immense. Something you probably didn't notice because of the cameras here is that not only are these shipping containers not as long and slender as our Battlefield 3 and 4 containers, but they're actually taller. And these military crates are also a little bigger. And our road barriers are also a little taller. So when you enter these spaces, these things feel big. The smaller objects that you're interacting with, taking cover behind, and the maze that you run through feels immense around you. Whereas in Battlefield 3 and 4, these were a little bit smaller and more practically sized, but the space itself was immense. Here's a direct comparison of those same assets and how they look right next to each other. That's our storage container on the side here versus the BF6 one, and the larger storage blocks and the military containers. So, in conclusion, historically, Battlefield has been much more of a game about positional intelligence, where being in the right place for the right situation ultimately trumps the need for critical reflexes. It's never really been a game about flashing corners and being jumpy or surprising people. It's much more a game about positional wisdom, which allows a lot of different people to play Battlefield. In smaller, more close quarters oriented games, like Call of Duty, that are more reflex dependent, the audience tends to be younger and more action craving, whereas Battlefield has historically had a community of all ages. A lot of the folks that trained me up on most of Battlefield 3 and 4 were 10, 20, sometimes 30 years older than me. Some of them were kind of old guys. I remember the top Battlefield 3 player with the M60 was like this 70-year-old man, and he didn't necessarily need to be Quick Draw McGraw to compete because he had wise positional knowledge. He was the best ranked player on Xbox with the M60, which is, a powerful machine gun, but a pretty slow firing one, probably the slowest of all the machine guns. So here we have an old guy, a slow player, and with a slow gun, absolutely kicking ass because he's just in the right spot at the right time. I don't think that same player can thrive in Battlefield 6 because of the claustrophobic map design. Battlefield 6 is a game that funnels players into tight, chaotic encounters with little room for strategy or time for it, and demands twitch reflexes and rapid cornering. Where again, Battlefield 3 and 4, and most Battlefield games in general, are about broader positional intelligence and being in the right place for each situation. Now, there is something to be said for this scale of map design. This map design is certainly what makes Call of Duty good. It's what makes smaller arena shooters good. Close quarters combat is fun. I personally thoroughly enjoy the chaos of environments like this sometimes, but they're fundamentally different games. These same principles I've gone over, they also apply to what's going on outside of these buildings. This is not just an analysis at a close quarters incident in various Battlefield games, but the broader map design philosophy. So whether it's a warehouse with shipping containers, or we're talking about a field with large boulders and rocks or trees, the same map philosophy translates across each of these respective games. There's going to be a lot more ground across in Battlefield 3 and 4, a lot more open space in a field. Whereas Battlefield 6, the spaces in between objectives are covered in craters, boulders, a zillion points of cover, and are essentially an outdoors close quarter experience. Now, this might have been to counter the complaint that there's too much running, too much walking in Battlefield games, that the time to engagement takes too long, and when you get there you might just get shot, and this bums out a lot of players. But I think there's something to be said for taking your time to get in the right position, and there's definitely more of a strategic game to be played in a game like Battlefield 3 or 4 versus just surviving the chaos of Battlefield 6's close quarters. And again, these close quarters instances in Battlefield 6 are exhilarating. Battlefield 6's destruction looks fantastic. Being inside a building that's falling apart and jumping across falling corridors and hallways that are crumbling underneath you, while the walls are turning into mist around you. It feels really great, moment to moment. But again, I think that type of gameplay belongs either in sparse moments in Battlefield or in a totally different game that can really thrive on moment to moment to moment chaos. But I really just personally miss the breathing room that Battlefield 3 and 4 and even 2042 allowed for, and the time you had for your strategy and the space you had for your strategy. You know, I think Battlefield 6 looks better than any Battlefield has before. It's really a beautiful game. But playing the game, I just have no time for creativity with my approaches and encounters. And again, this all translates to the bigger map design philosophy outside these buildings. Ground vehicles in Battlefield 6 have to squeeze their way through itty-bitty intersections and corridors. They feel like they're almost not supposed to be there. Air vehicles, most of my time flying jets or helicopters is spent avoiding the map boundaries or hiding behind the one average height building, because there isn't a lot of verticality in Battlefield 6 either. So everything's just a lot tighter and there's a lot less time for decision. I've been playing Battlefield for over 14 years now, and maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe this is what folks like. I think we'll see it as soon as Battlefield or a different Battlefield style game really kind of brings back this space and gives us a true 120 degree FOV, not the 95, 100 capped vertical FOV that we play with in Battlefield 6. We're going to be playing a really fun strategic game again and really covering a lot more ground. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.